Good to see everybody this morning. Have a number that are out that are sick, and we want to keep them in our prayers, but we're thankful for all that are present. Thanks to Chad for the good song leading that he's done for us this morning, and appreciate that last song, I'll Fly Away. That's certainly that all of us should look forward to at one time or the other in our lives. Those that are watching us on the internet, we hope that you'll continue to do that from time to time. And if there's anything that we might say or do here that you have a question about, we'd be glad to talk to you about it. Write to us to the North Sumner Church at gmail.com. We'd be glad to get back with you in regard to that. I think that most all of us here this morning have seen the Christmas movie, or the movie that is shown most often during Christmas. Is It's a Wonderful Life. It's one of my favorite. I always like to watch it on Christmas. Some people don't like that movie, but I happen to be one that does. It's about a man by the name of George Bailey, who's played by Jimmy Stewart, and he spent most of his life trying to help other people. He made a lot of plans when he was a young man, and plans that he never was able to achieve because of various circumstances in his life. His family business was a family-owned building and loan institution, I believe, a financial institution. And his daddy died whenever he was about ready to go off to college, and he had decided that he wanted to go see the world and then go to college and such things as this, and he never did get to do any of that. He was saddled with the family business to take care of that. He took care of the rest of his family in so doing, and he actually helped other people most of his life. And as he grew a little bit older, he had an uncle, Billy, who was very absent-minded and who didn't do things as well as he ought to, and through carelessness, he lost $8,000, and ultimately George was going to have to stand good for it and would have gone to jail had something not happened. And he became frustrated during all of this time, and he made the statement, "I wish that I had never been born." The angel Clarence came to help him to see the error of that wish that he had made, and he did so by showing him what would have happened had he not been born, what could have happened to those that he loved very much. And of course, at the ending of it, I believe it is the best part of it, when all of the different people that he had helped throughout his years came to his rescue and provided enough funds for him to get out of the problem that he was in at that particular time. And I guess we might say the message of that movie was that miserable people, even like us, sometimes we get it right every now and then. And but I don't want to talk about George this morning. I want to talk about someone else who was born about 2,000 years ago and into a world of sin and sorrow. And of course, that's Jesus that I'm talking about. The Apostle Paul referred to him, or this time, he said, when in the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the law. And that's what we want to talk about this morning. We want to talk about Jesus, and we want to talk about his birth. One theologian named Carl Blain, I think his name is, made this observation about what the world thinks about Jesus. Said, the world has never allowed the baby Jesus to grow up. It freezes him in time as a baby, keeps him in a manger, and worships him only once a year. The world loves a Jesus who cannot talk and turns him away when he begins to preach. And I believe that's right on. That's spot on. That's just about the way the world looks at Jesus. But I want to talk about a hypothetical question this morning and try to answer that question that has a very important spiritual implication to it. What if Jesus had never been born? You ever thought about that? What if Jesus had never been born? I want to try to answer that as we look at Ephesians, the second chapter this morning. So if you want to, we'll spend most of our time in the second chapter of the book of Ephesians. If you want to turn to your Bibles and follow along as we'll talk about some of these things. First of all, I believe that if Jesus had never been born, that we would be spiritually dead because of our sin. Look at what Ephesians 2 and verse 1 says. And you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sin. You, he's talking about these Ephesian brethren that had been were Gentiles. And he says that he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sin. The second verse of that same chapter says, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now walks in the sons, or works in the sons of disobedience. Now, the Apostle Paul is describing individuals that he refers to as were dead. They weren't dead now spiritually because they had obeyed the gospel, but they were dead. And that's where most of us have found ourselves, if not all of us, at one time or the other in our lives. We were dead, and the reason we were dead was because of our own trespasses and sins. And he continues to describe that in the second verse. You once walked, the idea is this is the way you lived. You lived according to the way the rest of the world lived, according to the course of this world, he says. And he says, according to the prince of the power of the air. That's the devil he's talking about here. These are people that he is speaking to who once lived the way the devil wanted them to. And then he says, the spirit who now works, that is the spirit of the devil, who now works in the sons of disobedience. Whenever we disobey God, and we do it on a regular, consistent basis, we are walking according to the course of the world. We're walking